All right, friends, what is going on? I am back out in the thick of things here and following up on my last video that I did right before I headed out of town. I had, if you recall earlier in that day, I had met up with the people behind Houswin. This is this 4 kilowatt portable diesel heater here right behind me that I'm going to share with you a little bit further here in a minute. But I had originally met these. I'm going to share with you a little backstory in case you haven't seen that video. I ran into these guys up at the Loveland Overland Expo, and they have a heater that was so unique, so different. I'd never seen anything like that before. Now, as many of you know, I've been testing various different diesel, gas heaters, propane heaters, all across the board for the last 6 years and so forth. And I've become a bit of a tough critic when it comes to winter camping and heating, mainly because there's a lot of rubbish out there, and there are just a few heaters that have been just absolutely extraordinary that I've tested over the years. And this one right here does something that actually there's two things, technically three, that I've not seen any other heater company do. And two of them especially are so unique that, boy, I had to meet up with these people. I went up to their factory and I got a first-hand demonstration on how these things work. And now, truth be told, I saw how it worked back in 2023, but this, I got to see more of a hands-on how these things fire up and how they do their thing. And of course, I was absolutely impressed, which is why before heading off, I did the video that I did there. Now we're out as promised, and we're going to fire this thing up here, and I actually have it laid out, and I'm going to switch over to this camera right here so we can play show and tell. All right, so this is the Houswin. This is the 4 kilowatt diesel heater. This thing is ultra portable. Now I have the exhaust right here, which I'm going to show you how that goes in there in a minute. Now, I did run the pipe going inside the, this is the PF Breg Up 5 tent here. Now, one of the things, I mentioned there are 3 things that this company does that is very different from others out there. And so, I'm going to hopefully do this with one hand. Most air vents are rather inexpensive, and they're quite ubiquitous. You've seen one, you've seen them all, and it's that black, kind of accordion material. Well, these guys have it kind of reminds me of like a dryer vent, but then what they do is they level up the game with this heavy duty canvas wrap that goes around it, and it's held on by Velcro and so forth, and you have these plastic fittings that you can see. There's a little notch there, a little notch here. You get that in there and twist it. There you go. The reason why I like this is because during real cold winter, now it's not cold, it's like 70 degrees up here right now. It's like 90 down in Orange County today, but at any rate, it's certainly not diesel heater weather right now, but hence the reason I'm in shorts. But anyways, in winter, from where the heater is to your tent, one of the biggest enemies is thermal loss. And if you have, let's call a spade, the normal vents or the hoses that are used, they're not thick, and heat will dissipate, and by the time it gets into your tent, it has lost some of that energy, that heat. This right here, this heavy canvas right here that they're using here, is going to allow that heat to stay in there. So it creates kind of like the PF Breg here. You have a buffer between outer wall, inner wall, because this will actually retain the heat and allow more of the heat coming from this to get inside there. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. So here is the exhaust. So this is really, once you get the location, so a couple things here. You have a fuel meter here. I just put a little diesel fuel in there. And you have your first piece of exhaust. You'll see there's a little notch right there. You'll see there's a little pin right there. Pop that sucker in there. Get on in there. There we go. And you bring that up. You have a few pieces of exhaust here that you're going to put on. You'll notice there's a little lip on that. That will be our first bit that we put in there. We're going to grab our next piece, and we're going to put that, put that in there. All right. Now we are going to take, so you'll notice you have 2 these left over. One obviously has the top on it. So this is going to be our base. We're going to take that. We're going to put it over There you go. And then obviously this is our top, so that's going to go up on the top. I'm doing this with one hand here. There we go. Awesome. There we go. Boom. Just like that. Okay, let's take a step back. So that is your complete exhaust there. So that shield right there is going to protect anybody bumping into it or this or that, and it's going to keep anybody from burning themselves or whatever you have going around. And actually, we'll get to that here in a moment as well. Okay, so one of the things that really makes this thing really unique, well, there's a number of things that just really excited me. Look at the size of this. This thing is really, really tiny. You do have a little thermostat remote here as well. Your fuel tank on the top. Now, again, this one has 1 gallon of diesel. They have a larger unit that has like 1.2 gallons, I seem to remember. Anyway, crack this thing open, and right up the get-go, now you're going to see where this thing is different. You can see 4 batteries here. This is what powers this heater. And it's actually self-generating is really what it is. So the cool part about this is, unlike other heaters, you have to have a power source to turn it on and maintain running it. And it's very important that you do not disconnect that power. You disconnect that power, it could shut the machine off and actually potentially harm the heater itself. This machine is really, really different. You have these 4 batteries right here that technically all these are needed is just to fire this thing up, and then after that, this thing is on its own. And actually, you can technically fire it up as well. You can DC input as well to fire this thing up, but the batteries absolutely need to be in there. And if you forget to charge the batteries, you just plug this thing into a 12-volt source and fire the machine up, and then it's going to ultimately start running and charging these up as well. Now, the cool part is you have a Type-C USB port up on the top here, and you also have a Type-A, and technically you can charge your phone or even run a simple light or two off of this as well. So there's enough power being generated off of this from a surplus standpoint that can actually turn on a light or two inside of your tent, which is, again, really, really nice. Okay, so let's show you how this thing turns on. You have a couple buttons right here. I'm trying to do this with one hand here. First, you're going to hit the power button right there once. Oops, there we go. And you're going to hit the on button down below that. And now, this is where things are going to get really exciting here. Now, in a minute, as this heater does its... Geez, I'm getting quite a shadow here. I totally forgot that the clock's moved forward here today. It is a little bit after 6 p.m. and I was like, geez, you know what? That's right. We have more sunshine. So it's sun doesn't go down until 6:50 here. But anyway, what's going to happen here is this machine is going to start heating up its glow plug. It's going to start doing what diesel heaters do, and it's going to start running here momentarily. And that is really, really slick. So the big question here was, does it do what it say it's going to do? Is it going to run? I keep getting in these darn shadows here. Is it going to run on its own? And that is going to be the part that I was excited to share with you folks and get up here and play show and tell a little bit further. So let's watch it. Okay, so now the machine is running and it sounds actually pretty darn slick. So down on the bottom, you can see our voltage right there. You can see the inlet temperature. You can see the level of power that we have. So we have it actually goes up. You can control it with this right here. I'm going to move it up to 9. That is as high as it goes. So you can hear it spooling up. Now, incidentally, this is the air in, and this is obviously the air out. Now, you have 2 hoses here. So just as a FYI, oh yeah, you can feel that's really warm already. So you have 2 hoses that are technically hinged together here. So if you're in a really cold area, you can, if you want to keep your heater outside, you can actually take one of them, plug it into here, and have a 2-hose system going inside of your tent. One is going to be pushing air in, one's going to be pulling it out, kind of similar like an AC system would. So you're using you're pulling the semi-warm ambient air from inside the tent cycling it through it, just warming it up. So it's like a continuous like circulation that it makes it much more efficient for the heater. Okay. This thing is pretty darn quiet. The only thing that I can hear, of course, is just the exhaust. I don't hear the fuel pump. Let's go inside and see how this feels. That is really pushing. That's pushing a lot of heat out right there. And so you can see this heater is about, from where we are right now, about 3 feet. I'm going to just be quiet here so you can actually hear it. This is actually pretty impressive because normally with heaters, you're going to hear a faint click noise of the heater. I don't hear that at all. Now that is really, really impressive. Okay, now I got to share with you the other thing that makes this heater so unique. Again, the two things that I mentioned in the last video that make this so different than any other heaters that I've ever tested before. One, you saw it right there. It has its own power supply, and it basically generated its own power from within. That is pretty slick. Now the other thing, which is pretty amazing as well. So if you have a hot tent, you can actually run this through your stove jack heading out of the tent, which means all the exhaust goes out of the tent, and then from there you have air. It's pulling the air in directly from inside your tent and moving it out. That's just pretty slick. And so that was the other part that I wanted to share with you folks. It just really makes this very, very unique. Now you'll have to set it up on a table and make sure that this is safely out of the roof of the tent and so forth. But that is, you got to admit, that's pretty amazing stuff there. So if you want to have this inside, if it's super cold, and again, kind of similar like the two-hose situation that I was mentioning a moment ago, the air is you're circulating the air that's inside of the tent, which is much, from a thermal standpoint, it's much more efficient, and it's just going to make the inside of the tent that you're in that much warmer. Pretty slick stuff there. But this thing is cranking away, and so you have the ability to turn it up and down. And so now we're moving it down to about half throttle there. You can hear it's throttling down a bit there. And then to shut it off, it's very simple. You have this on and off button right here. You're going to hit that first. You can see it's blinking off. And then ultimately, at the end, we're going to hit the power off button, and that's going to shut this machine off. That is pretty darn slick. So, first impression of this Houswin 4 kilowatt diesel heater. I have to say, I like it. Now, full transparency, this is a first impression. Well, can it be a first impression? So I'm actually using it, but now I want to be clear. I have not stress tested this through multiple times getting out. So this is just we're going to categorize this as a first impression. But first impressions, it's pretty darn slick. Again, so one of the things I've mentioned over the years is your biggest commodity in your rig is going to be your space. The footprint of this is very small, and then also, especially if you are on a budget. So we've pushed out some budget-related content here recently. This is, I wouldn't say this is a cheap heater, but it's also not one of the more pricier heaters. It's nice in the middle. And the cool part about this as well is if you don't have a portable battery as it is, because again, normal diesel heaters or gas heaters are going to require you're going to have a power station that you're going to need for it. With this, you don't need it. So that's going to save you a few bucks. And on top of that, this heater is kind of middle of the road when it comes to diesel heaters in cost-wise. But friends, that's going to be it. Now, with that said, if you have any questions on this Houswin 4 kilowatt diesel heater, leave a comment down below. If you want to see something about this heater, ask them down in the questions, although I think I just said that. But friends, that's going to be it here for me here today. I'm going to be shutting up the cameras. It was great seeing you again, and I will see you in the next video.